Okay, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Good morning, and I can.
Good
Yes.
morning. Yes.
Yes, we can.
No,
All
you're
right,
fine.
I
I'm
see a
listening.
hand
Good
raised,
morning.
so I would think yes is yes. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna turn my camera on. Um, Welcome everyone to the Chicago CoC FY 2024 HUD NOFO webinar. My name is Zach Granberry. I am the Senior Program Manager of the Collaborative Applicant Team at All Chicago. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I wanted to have this webinar this morning to go over a few things regarding our process for this year. Let me share my slides. All right, so looks like everyone can see the slide screen. So um, let's move forward. So in the chat, if you could put your name, your pronouns, the representation, so what organization that you're part of, or any CoC committees or subcommittees or affinity groups, if you could put that in the chat. Then I have a quick icebreaker that we could you could put in the chat as well. So your favorite part of your job, if you could put that in the chat as well, just so that we can kind of get familiar with each other virtually. As I mentioned before, my name is Zach Granberry, pronouns he, him, and his. I am representing All Chicago, the collaborative applicant. And my favorite part of the job is really these meetings, right? These conversations where I'm able to talk to you all about some of the great things that you all are doing, and to really brainstorm on how we make a better system.
Here we go.
So forward, and here's our agenda for this hour. I'm going to get through hopefully all of it. There is one piece that I may hold off on, and we may have to do another webinar in a couple of weeks, and um, that's due to the new NOFO process that was released on Friday. So I'm going to talk about that. That's specifically for PSH development. So I will touch on it today, but as far as really getting to the weeds of it, we may do another webinar to tackle it, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So let's get going. Since we do have some people that are on the call that are new to the CoC, what we want to do is to give a brief overview of what is a NOFO. Like, what does that even mean? I started a couple years ago, and it was so many acronyms, and I'm like, what does these things mean? So I want to make sure that we cover that here. So, what is the NOFO? The Continuum of Care program Notice of Funding Opportunity, that's what NOFO stands for, has been an annual competition created by HUD. This competition awards Continuum of Cares around the country funding to create housing and supportive services and resources to cultivate a system to end homelessness. Uh, Last year, HUD awarded over $3.2 billion in the FY23 competition to over 400 COCs. Our COC specifically was awarded roughly 96 million in the FY23 competition and funded over 140 projects. Um, the NOFO each fiscal year competition process begins with these steps is essentially what makes up the NOFO. So it's the registration of the COC, which is done by the collaborative applicant, which is all Chicago for Chicago CoC, followed by the CoC's review of the grant inventory worksheet, which we just completed a few weeks ago. So essentially what the GIW or the grant inventory worksheet is, it shows us all of our renewal projects within our CoC that are currently being funded by HUD funding, and just making sure that the budgets are correct, the names are correct, and that the organization that is overseeing these projects are correct. So we do that. We submit it to our local HUD representative, and then our local HUD representative sends it to the national team. So that's the GIW process that was submitted to the national team a week ago, literally the 16th. So actually tomorrow will be 1 week. And then the release of the NOFO, which is what we're here to talk about. I'll give you an update on that. Let's go to the next slide. So for the NOFO process itself, it includes all projects which renewal or new projects put forth by a CoC must be evaluated by their continuum of care prior to submission. Once the NOFO is released, the CoC funded agencies must complete project applications and eSNAPs. So as far as our evaluation process, for renewals, that usually takes place during the local evaluation instrument, which usually takes place around the spring of the year. So that took place in March and April of this year. This is a tool that is currently used to evaluate all CoC funded renewal projects. Each project receives an overall score, which is used as part of the ranking process known as the priority listing. eSNAPs, just as another acronym that people may not know, it's the system that's created by HUD's SNAPS office. This system is where all renewal and new projects, the projects that are selected via new project process, they will submit their project applications to be awarded during this competition. For our local and new project process, new projects will be evaluated and selected by our prioritization and selection work group. Once selected, you will be able to put forth a project application via eSNAPs in hopes to be awarded in the FY24 NOFO Awards, which will be announced in early 2025. Most CoCs conduct a new project process to give the opportunity to new agencies and projects or expansion of existing projects within the CoC. Each CoC sets criteria for their local competition and ranking process, which we call ours the ranking policies. So we will be releasing the FY24 ranking policies within this week, or no later than next week, via the CoC newsletter and the CoC website for your review. The collaborative applicant usually submits a consolidated application and the priority listing to HUD by the deadline of the competition, which usually the deadline of the competition is at the end of September each year, usually the last Thursday in September to be exact. Last year, we lost one of our renewal projects that was ranked at the bottom of our priority listing due to the competitiveness of this process. So as you can see in the last bullet on your screen, it says the competition is highly competitive. Funding is not guaranteed. This is 100%. We put forth, just to give you more insight about it, we put forth around 10 projects in the last 2 years, new projects in the last 2 years, but have only been awarded 2 new projects. That was 1 per year. So this competition is very competitive, and we want to put our best foot forward. So these are NOFO must-haves. So these are the must-haves for profit. So to be an eligible applicant, you must be a nonprofit organization with a 501c3 status. Or a state or local governments, or instrumentalities of state or local government. So those are the The eligible applicant for-profit entities are not eligible to apply for grants or be sub-recipients of grant funds. You must have a unique entity ID or a UEI to apply. UEIs are the replacements for DUNS numbers. So for those who have been completing NOFO competitions for a while, you usually have used your DUNS number, business number, to complete it, but it's transitioned in the last two competitions to UEIs. If you do not have a UEI, please visit sam.gov, that's sam.gov, to obtain one. And you want to do that way before the competition starts. You must have access to eSnap, so we will share this slide deck out with everyone. But this is the actual link, which I'll try to Shatoya, if you can put the link to eSnaps in the chat, please. Okay. So, but this is the website to the actual system that I was mentioning that we use to apply for the competition through there. When you go to eSnap's website, and if you're new and you don't have a profile, you want to go to the eSnap's website. You want to click create profile to create a new profile for yourself and ultimately for your organization if it's a new organization. If you are a new project, if you have any questions on setting up a profile, please email our team at the CoC programs at allchicago.org, and we will walk you through the process or send you the information to walk through the process. Projects must be evaluated and ranked through your local CoC competition. That's a must. So that's going to happen in a couple of ways that I've mentioned already, but just want to reiterate. The local evaluation instrument, or the LEI, is the first way for renewal projects. And then for new projects, it's applying through the new project application process, which I'll go over in a little bit. And then the prioritization selection work group evaluating and recommending which new projects to apply. And then I will touch on what our priority listing and ranking policy, ranking order looks like for our CoC. All new housing projects must have housing and healthcare leverage. So in the HUD application over the past 2 years, and I believe it will be in the FY24 application as well, per HUD, is that for new projects, they are looking for agencies or projects that have housing and healthcare leverage. So meaning having partnerships with entities within those fields. And how you would demonstrate that is by submitting commitment letters to your collaborative applicant along with your application, and also uploading it in your application. So you would do that by commitment letter showing which entities that you're working with and how much of a commitment financially and overall that they will provide. So you will do that, and we will share a example of that commitment letter, not today in this session, but we would try to post that as well on our website when we put out all of the NOFO information on the website. And then lastly, a must-have is a minimum of 25% matching requirement. So if you are a agency renewal, or if you are new to the process, HUD is requesting that all agencies put forth 25% of your requested HUD funding amount up to run your project. So that's a requirement set by HUD, not by the Chicago CoC. So here is some updates from HUD. So recently there was a conference, which was a National Alliance to End Homelessness conference, which was in Washington, D.C. A week or so ago, where HUD spoke about the NOFO competition and what's transpired. So at this time, literally an hour ago, I checked. The annual NOFO has not been released at this time. So so you can't log into eSnaps and do anything because it's not there, and they have not posted it. So that's one thing to note. But as far as the NOFO, as I mentioned before, it has been an annual process where each year we're doing this process. Well, last year there were members of COCs around the country advocating to our legislators that this needs to move into a 2-year process, which would be very beneficial to COCs around the country because this will give us more time to be more effective in our day-to-day work with in our communities, and it'll allow us to kind of recalibrate our COCs. There's some things that we want to improve. There's some things that we want to attack within our own COC. So having a 2-year process would be great. Meaning, like how would that work? So what happened is that 1 year would be a competitive year and the next year would be a non-competitive year. So they heard us, they approved it, the Congress approved it, and now it's in effect as a test run for this year. So so the 2-year process has been something so like it's in effect for this year. So meaning that this year will be a normal competitive process, while next year the process will look very different. So we won't get into what next year will look like because as a COC, we have not discussed and talked about it as of yet. But one thing that HUD shared with us is that we won't have to submit a consolidated application for FY 2025. Our score for this year's competition will actually be our score that will migrate for FY 2025. And I do see your hand, Jackie. What I want to do today is that we have Q&A built in at the end. So if you can hold off or put it in the chat, I'll make sure to circle back and answer any question. And then, or we'll have time to come off mute and ask the question. So the next thing is about FMR adjustments. So what they mentioned was that there would be fair market rent adjustments with what happened in both years. For this competition for the FY24, there will be an 11 to 12% increase in the competition. Agencies won't have to do anything to receive this increase. This will happen once the awards are done. But just to explain what is a fair market rent, or also FMR. Fair market rents are estimates of the amount of money that would cover gross rents. So for example, that's rent and utility expenses on 40% of the rental housing units in an area. To learn more about the FY24 FMRs, please see the HUD FAQ regarding FY24 FMRs that we do have in the slide deck that we will put in the chat as well. COCs will be able to adjust planning grants funding in a non-competitive year. So so the planning grant for a COC is the collaborative applicant applies for the planning grant. So we'll be able to adjust based on what the COC wants and needs. So we don't have all of the details yet of how that will look or how that will work in a non-competitive year, but HUD definitely shared that. Another thing that I think is exciting about these updates is that there will be a cost of living allowance or a COLA increase available in the supportive services budget line items. So this was also another thing that agencies won't have to do anything extra to receive, that there will be additional increases along with the FMR and the COLA in this year's competition. And then lastly, there is another NOFO that has it says released soon, but actually it was released at 3:45 on Friday. But a new NOFO that specializes in PSH development, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So now getting into the Chicago CoC NOFO timeline is what we're going to talk about now. We like to break it up into a few events, as I like to call them. One being the renewal project process. So I'll discuss that in a second. The new project process, and then there's another PSH. There's another NOFO that I just mentioned that I'll talk about. And then we have ranking policies that will be published soon. So I want to reiterate that, and we're going to go over that now. So the renewal process. So this is a process that is for all current CoC HUD-funded projects. So NOFO, let me be specific, NOFO. So if you're receiving funding through our SNOFO grant, or if you work with the UHI team, you do not have to, or any other CoC funded, or any other funding sources that the CoC offers, for example, like IDHS, you do not have to take part in this process. So I just want to make that clear. This is only for agencies that have projects that are funded through HUD, CoC, NOFO. So with our process, what we do is we release a renewal project survey via Alchemer. Alchemer is the system that we use. We will release that as soon as the annual NOFO is released, because part of it, which I'll discuss in later on in another slide, but we won't release this survey until HUD releases the NOFO, which will happen any second now. It could be out while we're meeting. But as far as the next bullet point, must be in good standing with CoC by August 9th at 5 p.m. Central Time. So what does that mean? By the end of the day, August 9th at 5 p.m. What does that mean? So what we ask every year, it's in the application, it's in all the communication, and this year is no different, is that we're asking for all agencies to be in good standing, meaning paying their membership dues by this date here, August 9th. 5 p.m. So that's which would be part of good standing. So what we will do is check in with our finance team to make sure that that organization has met that deadline. If you have not met that deadline or have not communicated with us by that deadline, and then you will not be able to renew your project. That is a standard that the CoC has had for years, and that's in writing. So just want to share that. So you want to make sure that August 9th dues are paid. And if you don't know how or who to contact, you can definitely email me or the CoC programs at allchicago.org, and we can get things situated. Also, part of our process, must submit your eSNAPS project application. So this was the part where I was saying that we won't release the survey until the NOFO is released, because one of the pieces that's part of the survey is that you must submit your project application. So what that means is that each organization is going to go in soon as you can in eSNAPS, start working on your project application, and then before you hit submit, you're going to PDF that application, and then you're going to upload it into our survey. And I'll go over that process in a second. But that's why it's important to submit it. But again, please do not hit submit in eSNAPS before confirmation email from collaborative applicant. So then once we receive the survey and a PDF version of your application, we will review all eSNAP project applications and give feedback if necessary. If your application is good to go, then you will get an email from our team to say it's good to go, and then you can go into eSNAPS and hit submit, and then your application is now done with us as far as renewals. If you get an email back with feedback, please update that. We'll go over the timeline in a few slides, but and then once we review that again, you will get an email from us saying that you can hit submit. Oh, and just if you are a DV sub-recipient, or if you are interested in becoming a sub-recipient of the DV process, please email me for more information. So here's some steps of for renewals on how to do this process. So complete application, applicant profile and project applications. Do not hit submit. We're going to keep stressing that in eSnaps yet, but that's what you want to do once you go to eSnaps. Want to make sure that your applicant profile is updated to reflect any new leadership or changes within your organization before, and you want to make sure you do that prior to starting your application, because once you start your application and you go into eSnaps, you're not, if you try to make any changes with that, one, it may not allow you to, it may be grayed out, but two, if you make changes, it may not reflect because you started your application prior to updating your applicant profile. So just want to share that. So you'll create your applicant profile, you'll create project application or applications if you have multiple projects. You're going to submit a PDF of the project applications to All Chicago through Alchemer. If a project is pursuing consolidation, indicate that in Alchemer and must submit a consolidated application plus individual renewal project applications. So that's it's really checking a box inside of eSnaps to allow you to do that. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to our team and we can help you through that process. All Chicago will review all the applications and will communicate to let you know if any projects require any edits. You can submit once we say it's okay and everything is good to go. Here's the first download of a PDF of your submission from the submission summary page. So when you're walking through eSnaps, this is what the last page looks like, or this is what the last page looks like when you go through the project application process. There's as you can see in the screenshot, the submit button is grayed out, but once you go through the entire application and complete the mandatory fields, that button will not be grayed out. So that's why we're asking you to not hit that button when you get to the end. Hit the button above it where it says export export to PDF, and then save that PDF and then attach it into your survey, which the link is here. It's up and ready. And it is now available. So we will release, I will backtrack. It is available, but you can't submit it to us until you're able to do the project application in eSnaps. So yeah. Complete the following. So agency contact information, agency name as listed on the GIW, upload PDF. Or let me go back a step. So when it says agency name as listed on the GIW, if your name was correct on the FY24 GIW that was released and post on the CoC website, if it was fine, then you will put that one. If you did have a name change, please put the name change that you submitted through the GIW survey, because that's the name that has been submitted to HUD. So your name should be corrected. Upload your PDF of the applicant profile, and then indicate number of CoC funded projects applying for renewal. So some agencies have multiple, so you want to make sure you do that. You will be provided additional submission pages. So it'll allow you to, so essentially the page will refresh to allow you to keep uploading applications. And please include any consolidated plans. So here's the deadline for renewal projects. Round one will be August 9th by noon, August 9th. So that's going to be the time. All Chicago staff will return comments via email by August 19th. So please allow us to review. So as I mentioned, our team will review all submissions of eSnap applications. We will do it for a whole week, the week of the 12th through the 16th. And then by the 19th, you should be receiving an email if you're good to go, or if there's any feedback and updates that you need to do. And then once you get that, you can hit submit. Round two is for those who receive an email on August 19th for feedback. So You will have from the 19th to August 23rd at noon p.m. to resubmit your applications. And if there's additional changes need to be made, we will reach out to you. But August 23rd is when we want all renewal projects submitting their applications on that day. This timeline has been established based on HUD requirements, so no exceptions will be granted. If you once the NOFO is released, or if you have access to a FY 2023 NOFO, you will see within the instructions it states that the NOFO that agencies must submit their project applications to CoC within 30 days, no more than 30 days of the deadline. So that's where, if the deadline we're expecting to be September 26th, we want to make sure that August 23rd, no later than that, we have renewal projects submitted. So now we get into the new project process for the annual NOFO. So this process is for new projects, so brand new agencies that want to put forth a new project. This is also available for existing CoC funded projects that want to expand a existing project. So you can apply as well through our new project process. The new project application is released by the collaborative applicant, which is All Chicago, via Alchemer. This year we're doing something different. We had feedback sessions last year with various groups, with providers, with our work group that evaluates internal. We tried to reach out to everyone, and the feedback that we got was about the application was that when you PDF it, it becomes challenging to understand what's all there, because there's logic that we use to build in behind the scenes so that you don't have to see questions from a different component. But when you PDF it, for whatever reason, the system shows you all the questions that's there. So what we tried to do this time around is make it program component specific. So meaning that when we post this on the website, there are going to be applications that's going to say new project applications, but it's going to tell you specifically your program component that you're applying for. So if it's rapid rehousing, you're going to click on the rapid rehousing. It's only for rapid rehousing. There's going to be general questions that all applications have, but there's going to be a section that says program component specific that are only going to ask you about rapid rehousing. And same thing for PSH and all other program components that are available for funding. So make sure you're clicking on the correct application and completing the right application this year. You must be a member and in good standing with the CoC by August 9th. So I mentioned earlier from what does good standing mean? That's what it means. So just making sure that you're paying your membership dues for if you are not a member of the CoC but would like to apply for funding, you definitely can become a member of our CoC, which we will share the link as well. Chatoya, if you could get that link in the chat, on becoming a member of the CoC. But you want to make sure that you're paying your dues or communicating to us about dues by August 9th. We're stressing, especially when it comes to new projects, specifically must have housing and healthcare leverage via a commitment letter, which again, we will help anyone who wants to learn more about that process. We're going to share an example letter of what that looks like for both, for housing and healthcare. Applications will be evaluated and scored by the prioritization and selection work group. So there is a work group that is made up of various stakeholders of the CoC, from persons of lived experience to other entities and members of CoC. No one on the committee is part of an organization that is applying or receiving HUD CoC funds. That's making sure that we meet our CoC conflict of interest policy. No member of All Chicago is on the committee or can vote. in any decision making. So I want to stress that as well, making sure that we meet our CoC conflict of interest policy. The selected applicants must submit their eSNAP project application via email to the collaborative applicant for review. So that's what's a little bit different. But once the prioritization selection work group has selected and scored and recommended projects, you will get an email from me directly stating, you know, approved or denied or whatever, wherever you fall, you will get an email from me. And then if you are approved to put forth an application, then we will give you the steps on how to do that. Please do not hit submit in eSNAPs before confirmation email from collaborative applicant. We're stressing that because we usually have a few agencies that do it, even though we stress it. So, and we know that, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but just we want to make sure that we have a chance to review prior to. After review, new applicant will submit project application via eSNAPs. So let's go into the process itself. So as of right now, these are the project types in the ranking order as well of what will happen and who can apply. So so we have HMIS. So HMIS is so the board has approved for the CoC board has approved for all Chicago to apply for HMIS funding through this competition. It could be no more than 1.5% of our annual renewal demand. So that amount is $939,905 to be exact, is what HMIS funding that we will apply for through this competition. Our annual renewal demand, as I mentioned earlier, was roughly $96 million. So that's what will be put forth. Also, the board has voted for HMIS to be at the top of new projects, but I'll speak a little bit of where that ranks overall. The next project type that or project component that can apply is PSH. This year is open to all PSH. Last year we only had it for scatter site, but if you want to put forth a single site or a project-based program, you can. And then we have rapid rehousing, and then DV bonus. The asterisk there for DV bonus because DV bonus goes through a little bit of a different process. It doesn't go through the new project application process, but that's where each year we, as All Chicago, apply on behalf of the CoC for the DV bonus, which is usually $5 million. And how that works is that All Chicago works collectively with the network to manage the DV funds, and then there are sub-recipient agencies who receive that funding. So all of that money goes back out into the community, into different orgs. And then we have transitional housing and joint transitional housing, rapid rehousing projects. So everyone can apply this year. As of right now, the final list of that will happen this Wednesday, just to confirm it Wednesday when the prioritization selection work group meets. This is why the ranking policies will be released later this week. Again, this is eligible for new and expansion projects. The rotational order by new project evaluation tool score. So again, what that means is that as you see this list, if there are multiple PSH projects, the top PSH project will be ranked first. The top rapid rehousing project will be ranked first, and so on. And if we receive more projects than in one component than others, it still will follow that process, but it may be more of PSH there. But again, this is going to be determined by the prioritization selection work group as they evaluate and recommend projects. And then all new projects based off this list that you see will be ranked in tier 2. This has been chosen by the prioritization selection work group over the past few years. But yes, new projects are ranked at the bottom of tier 2. So that will remain in FY 2024 competition. All right, as far as the new project application, so here are the categories of questions that are included, which are project information, so just basic information about your project overview, so you explaining what this project is and the importance of it, and questions around that. As I mentioned, program component specific questions, going to be questions specifically around that program component, trying to make sure that that any applications put forth is meeting the expectations of HUD and the Chicago CoC. And then budget requests, so making sure that you are showing, or the amount that you're requesting to run your project. It's going to be questions that's around that as well. Any matching that I mentioned, that 25%, the minimum 25%, you including that. And then we also have a budget spreadsheet, so to help you walk through and create your actual budget for your program. Bonus questions there will be bonus questions regarding racial equity, persons of lived experience, and subpopulations based on CoC data that exists. So that will be there as well. And then the application deadline is 5 p.m. on August 9th. So again, August 9th is the deadline for all of our processes, because we want to make sure that we have enough time and we meet HUD deadline. And it is unfortunate that, and I didn't mention this earlier, but normally HUD releases the NOFO 4th of July weekend. It was July 3rd last year, and then in 2022 was July 5th. So we're a few weeks behind with the process, but it has to roll out to it has to end before the fiscal year ends for HUD, which is September 30th is their deadline. So that's why they usually have the NOFO end, the Thursday before the 30th. So here's just a breakdown of the timeline, just to make it even clearer, is that for new projects, we plan to release the applications, if not the 23rd, definitely July 24th, which will be Wednesday. The deadline will be August 9th. The work group will review from August 9th to the 20th to evaluate the projects. They will then give a recommendation to the CoC board. CoC board will approve the slate, and then we will get out emails to those selected projects by August 23rd. And then they have up until September 20th to complete the application in eSnaps. And then for the renewal, we plan to release it today. The actual survey, I'm hoping that the NOFO does release today, which will give us the ample amount of time so we can have those 3 weeks to complete these applications. Project application due date, as we mentioned, was August 9th. So we're trying to make all the due dates be the same. All Chicago staff will review the applications between the 12th through the 16th, as mentioned earlier. And then the feedback sent out will go out August 19th, which is a Monday. And then the eSnap application will be due August 23rd. So here's the ranking policies. So this is how it works. So renewal ranking will remain. Well, let me back up. So as I mentioned earlier, each CoCs have to have a ranking policy. This shows you the criteria of how the ranking order comes about, and what criteria makes it. So we have our ranking policies. The renewal ranking policy will remain the same as of FY23. What was approved last year was that the ranking policies were to be a 2-year process, meaning to review every 2 years. But also what was approved by the board was that if any amendments were necessary, then we could amend the policies. And that's what's happening currently for this year, that there are some amendments to last year. But what is the same from last year is that the ranking order will be based off of LEI scores in a rotational order. HUD ranks projects in 2 tiers. So there's tier 1, tier 2. Tier 1 is based off 93% of the annual renewal demand that a CoC can apply for. So that roughly $96 million that I'm speaking of, 93% of that makes up tier 1. So majority of projects fall within tier 1. And this is the breakdown for our CoC and how they're ranked in the order. So it starts off with system level projects, which are coordinated entry SSO projects and HMIS projects. Then it goes to renewal projects without 4-year average LEI scores. So if a project has not been around for 4 competitions, it will not have a 4-year average LEI score. So to make sure that we don't lose those projects and that those projects have the opportunity to be around, we have agreed, and we as in the work group that I speak of have agreed that they will be ranked second. And then what's new this year, which is an amendment to the policy that didn't exist, that wasn't in the last year's policy, is newly transferred grants. So since the last competition, there's been 10 grants transferred. So what is a transfer is when there's a CoC project that exists with one agency and now they want to transfer it to another agency. So that's the transfer process. There's been 10 of those since the last competition. And so to not penalize any new agencies who are taking on these projects, the prioritization selection work group voted that newly transferred grants will automatically be ranked in tier 1 regardless on their score. So that's what will happen for this competition. And then lastly, in tier 1 is renewal projects with a 4-year average LEI score, and then it will be in a rotational order, which you will see when the ranking policies come out. For the breakdown of tier 2 is a continuation of the renewal projects with 4-year average LEI score. So as I mentioned, the tier 1 is made up of 93% of projects, of renewal projects. So those projects that fall out of that will make up the 7% of the ARD, or annual renewal demand. They will fall in tier 2, and then rounding out the tier 2 will be new projects. One thing that is also an amendment to policies of last year is transition grants. So a transition grant is where an agency that has a CoC funded project that's in one program component wants to switch it to another. So for example, if I have a joint transitional housing and rapid rehousing project, and I want to now change that to a rapid rehousing project, I would do that through the new project process, and it would be considered a transition grant. So this year, we will not allow transition grants through our new project process. However, if you are interested in transitioning your project to another project component, please email the CoC program's email address, also CC me on it, so that we can start having discussions for preparation for FY25 NOFO. So we're at 11:50. This is where I kind of wanted to get us at the proper time for questions and Q&A. We do have another grant to talk about, but because this process just came out on Friday, we're not rolling it out this week. I will go over one slide deck with you all, just so that you can know what's happening and what's transpiring in the deadline for it, and to state we have time. We definitely have time. So, but as I mentioned, the PSH development grant. It is called the Chicago CoC's Chicago CoC Builds NOFO. That's what it's called. And is to address and reduce homelessness by adding new units of permanent supportive housing or PSH projects through capital costs. So new construction, new acquisition, and new rehabilitation costs. No more than 20% of an award may be used for CoC program activities, such as supportive services, operating costs, administrative costs, and no more than 10% of an award that's given may be used for project administration. I do see in the chat seen a couple of times, will this be recorded? Yes, this is being recorded as we speak. There will be slides and everything will be available this week. So I'll do this slide and then I'll stop because we're going to have another webinar specifically for this in about 2 weeks to address this. So this NOFO is going to be only for PSH projects. The eligible applicants are listed below. It's pretty much the same applicants for any NOFO that HUD releases. The total program funding that they're going to be releasing is $175 million nationwide. The award ceiling is up to $10 million per project that is awarded. So because our CoC is our annual renewal demand is one of the highest, we anyone that applies for that can apply for the 10 million, up to 10 can apply for the 10 million per project. The floor is $1 million. So the project that's put forth has to be a minimum of $1 million and no more than 10 million. Additional $2 million can be awarded if the project, if the housing is being built on tribal reservation or trust lands. HUD will adjust awards for operating and rental assistant budget line items based on FMR changes. Non-capital cost funds awarded under this NOFO may be eligible for renewal in the CoC program competition in the future. So that's not again, the key word is maybe, but it seems like operation, administrative, those type of costs will supportive services dollars may be renewed in upcoming CoC competitions. The deadline for this application is Thursday, November 21st. This is why we're going to do another webinar to kind of dive in deep into this, so that if you have any questions, but we definitely have time, so I don't want anybody to stress to say that, hey, there's an extra 2 weeks, but wanted to bring this up, share it to you, and wanted to make sure that we had everything correctly, because again, this did release at late Friday afternoon, so we just want to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's before we give you all of the information regarding this project. So now I'm going to open it up for questions regarding the annual NOFO. And you could just come off mute if you have any questions. Go ahead, Jackie.
I put both of my questions in the Q&A, if you want to look there. Otherwise, you're asking me to remember what both of them were.
Hello, Jackie.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Jackie stated that she put both of her questions
We can't
in
hear you.
Q&A.
It looks like you off mute, but for whatever reason, we can't hear you.
I can hear, but
I can hear too.
Let's interpret. Jackie said, Zach, that she put both her questions in the Q&A.
Oh, you can hear her. I can't hear her.
Right.
Okay. Sorry. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Do you want me to read the questions in the Q&A?
Oh, it's in the Q&A. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I can hear you now. Sorry. I had mine on mute because of noise. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Let me go to this Q&A and try to knock these questions out. Okay. So as a subrecipient of the Rapid Rehousing CoC HUD program, which category does this program fall under? If you're a subrecipient of a Rapid Rehousing program, um, you're more than likely a NOFO grant, if because we don't have any. Um, let me take that back. As far as a subrecipient of a program, I would have to know who you Bridget. I would have to know who you have a contract with. Like if you have a subrecipient agreement with All Chicago, then you fall under SNOFO. If you have a sub recipient agreement with another agency, then you're probably a sub recipient to one of the CoC grantees projects, which I don't have a list offhand, but I know that there are some CoC grantees, NOFO grantees that have sub recipients.
Thank you.
Yep. Jackie question was, what was that released late last Friday afternoon, and can you forward that? Yes, we can put in the chat. So that's the CoC Builds NOFO is the official name of the PSH development. The slides I just went over, the briefs, I gave you the overview of it. That released literally at 3:45 p.m. Friday. So I do have enough slides to cover it. I went through the application, but there's still like maybe one or two things that I want to kind of ask my HUD rep and a few people about before I just jump full throttle into it. But we can share that with you as well. Looks like Pamela already shared the release. Thanks, Pamela. All right, next question, Jackie. If the cost of the planning grant increases, how will the cost be absorbed? That's something that as a CoC currently we're having conversations about. As far as like FY23 planning grant dollars, there was an increase. There was a $250,000 increase, making the planning grant go from 1.25 million to $1.5 million. So there is going to be additional $250,000 that comes to our CoC at the end of or at the start of November, because the planning grant is October. So there will be a conversation with the Collaborative Applicant Committee at the next Collaborative Applicant Committee meeting to have initial conversations around that. So let's see, is the 2-year process for new and renewal applications. The 2-year process will be for the entire thing. However, put an asterisk next to that, because depending on if our CoC does reallocation. So one thing that we're evaluations will evolve next year, which means that potentially reallocation may happen. So if reallocations may happen, then we may run new project process to reallocate the dollars, which what HUD stated, if we do run any processes like that, we won't have to submit a consolidated application. What will happen is that we will have to submit a priority listing though to HUD, and then if we don't run anything, then what agencies would do would just log into eSnaps to verify that the information is correct and then hit submit. So essentially nobody would have to do applications in a non-competitive year. Just verify our information is the same. Let me go back to the chat, see if anyone added questions there. I think the main question was, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, and that we will get this out to everyone. All right, I see Dave has a hand. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, just having issues getting off mute there. With the ranking policy for projects that consolidated, we had a project that consolidated this year, but we had to do 2 separate for the actual LEI.
Yeah.
I know it in years past, and maybe you mentioned this already. In years past, the higher score of the two is typically what it used for the ranking policy, and I'm just wondering if that is the same for this year.
Yes, and sorry, I left that out. Sorry, but yes, that is correct. The higher score is used.
Okay.
The higher average score is used.
Okay, thank you.
And the great thing about it is that moving forward, you won't have to do two LEI applications. You just have to do one. All right. Any Pamela? Or I'm sorry, Jackie, do you have another question or your hand is still raised? I'm sorry, I don't want to skip you.
Nope. Sorry, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Pamela.
Hey, Zach. Thanks for all this information. I know that you said that you're primarily talking about the renewal NOFOs and the new project process for the regular NOFO this year, and that you're going to have a separate webinar about the development NOFO. But
Yeah.
just to understand the difference between applying for an expanded project and the regular new project NOFO versus a new development project, right? I saw in your slide that it said the development NOFO will be for new PSH projects. So does that mean, like, for example, if we have a property that has 150 units and maybe 30 of those units currently have some CoC funding, but we wanted to redevelop the whole property and make it more CoC, PSH, would we be looking at the development NOFO? Is that like still going to be an option if there's some CoC funding at a property, but we want to, like totally redo the project and add CoC units? Does that make sense?
No, it makes 100%. I get you, Pamela. So that's one of those things that I want to double check before I say yes. I mean, the logic is me leaning to yes, and I know that when we initially heard about this program, this NOFO opportunity a year ago and a few months ago, that was the thought as well. But that's something that I haven't had a chance to kind of like 100% verify yet.
Yeah,
So,
no, that makes perfect sense. If the project I'm thinking about is eligible for the new NOFO, then that would be great. It's just if we would have to try to not renovate the building and just expand the units, we'd have to get that together by August 9th. So that's the only reason I'd want to figure out if that project's eligible before the 9th for the new NOFO, if that makes sense. So thank you.
Well,
if you can look into it and let us know, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that and you just that makes sense. And now it makes me think about if there's a way to up this the timeline of the next the next the next webinar. But okay, I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, Nancy.
Hello. I put it in the chat too to ask, would expansion applications also need to partner with health services or just new applications?
New applications. It's around it's focused around new applications. So when the HUD application is released, the annual HUD application is released, and if you go back to the FY23, because that is still on HUD's Exchange website. Like if you Google CoC HUD NOFO, there's going to be a competition page. You can go there right now and see FY23 instructions, and inside there, it's going to state for new projects that it's not mandatory that you have it. It's just the importance of that HUD stresses, and that we get scored as a CoC on it. So this is just giving more insight to it, is that as a CoC, we get a debrief analysis and we get scored on various things throughout the consolidated application. One of those things is about healthcare. Are we putting forth new projects where housing and healthcare leverage is the specific question on the application? And we scored 14 out of 14 for the FY22 competition, but for the FY23 competition, we scored 7 out of 14. So HUD didn't give us like direct, this is why you scored 50% of it. But last year, when we put new projects forward, we only had housing letters. We didn't have healthcare. So because of that, I assume that we probably only got half the points because we only had half the leverage. So that's why we're trying to stress this year new projects that put forth applications to have both.
Thank
Does
you.
that make sense? Okay. Ms. V.
Hi, Mr. Zachary. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. Hello, everyone. Now that you had mentioned that healthcare and what was the housing and healthcare bit, you said you was going to also show us a sample of that letter.
Yes, we're gonna post it. I'm not gonna show it today. We're gonna post it. We're gonna post it.
Okay, so I do have another question with this new NOFO, new applicant. Say, for instance, if we were interested in doing a permanent supportive housing application with the new applicant NOFO, and with the permanent supportive housing development coming up, will we be able to still use that towards that application for that, or those would be two separate parts?
So Ms. B, that's a good question. That is similar to, if not exact, to Pamela's question earlier. So I just need to verify. My gut tells me that the answer is yes, that you would be able to put forth both, but I just want to verify that. So
Okay, so it would be safe for us to still apply for the new applicant if we were interested in permanent supportive housing?
yes, I would say start there. If you are a brand new agency and you do not have CoC funding, you want to start with the new project application for the annual HUD process.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Crystal, sorry, Nancy, is there still a question, or are your hands just still raised? I don't want to skip you.
Just the hand. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Crystal. Go ahead, Crystal. Question. All right, I'm gonna come back to Crystal and go to Sheila Martin.
Hey, how are you, Zach? Hey, this is
I'm
Sheila
good.
Martin from Holistic Alliance. And again, this is some really great information. And I think I'm just piggybacking off of the last two questions. And maybe once we get the information about the builds NOFO, but looking at the information that we briefly went through about tier 2 when it comes to the PSH, and I know that it's either can be project based, it was scattered sites, but also can be single sites. If I'm probably rehashing the same question. So if we were to, as an organization, apply for the tier 2 PSH funding, would it be comparable outside of the amounts similar to the builds NOFO for PSH?
Yeah, so this just to be a little bit clearer is that these are separate funding pools, right? So for the annual NOFO process, so that includes renewal or new projects. So there's a specific pool. So for the renewal process, it's roughly the $96 million that I speak of. But for the new project, we are projecting right now, it's not 100%, but we are projecting that we have about 3.2 total in new project funding. So if you subtract the $939,905 that I mentioned earlier, it's around $2.6 million in new project funding that is available that we're putting forth, for the annual NOFO. So that's that amount, right? And then there's a separate NOFO, which is the CoC builds, which is the $175 million nationwide. So again, that's very competitive. So I don't know, who will receive it or what, but the max you can apply for is $10 million. The minimum is $1 million for that project that you put forth. So hopefully that answers the question. Like it's two separate funding pools. So I mean, you can apply if you're a brand new project, you can apply. You should apply through the annual NOFO project, and whatever component that you're putting forth, you're going to pick that application and complete it that way.
Thank you.
No problem. And then I'm going to end it with Crystal.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My question goes back to the rankings. Am I understanding this correctly, that it's going to be based on the last 4 years of LEI scores, the average?
Crystal, it really depends on your project itself, or projects. If you are at an agency that have multiple projects that are currently funded through the CoC. So if you are a project that has been around for the last 4 competitions, then you will have 4 LEI scores. So, because each year, for those who may be new to the CoC, with the local evaluation instrument, it's an application that evaluates all CoC renewal grants. So within that process, you get a scorecard. You get a score every year. So if you've been around for 4 competitions, then you have 4 scores, and those scores are compiled to make an average. If you have not been around for 4 competitions, then you will not have a 4-year average. And then I went over where you were ranked in tier 1. If you don't have that.
Yeah, I was asking because I think 4 years ago would have been the COVID, and I'm not sure if there was a LEI score for that, or was that did we automatically get renewals?
So it's called 4 competitions. So the COVID year was a non-competitive year. It wasn't a competition, so it wasn't LEI or a score. So these are the 4 years that would count. It would be the FY24 LEI that you just completed in April. That score. Okay. You would do the FY23, which was last year's score. Mm-hmm. You would add FY22. Which was the year prior to that, and then you would add FY19, which I believe, or is it 19 or 21?
It's 19.
It's 19, yeah. Okay, thank you. 19. So yeah, so you will add those 4 together, and that will give you your 4-year average.
Okay.
Yep. And then the prioritization selection work group has they voted to make that the policy. And then all Chicago, what we do is just create the ranking order of it.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all. Sorry to keep you an additional 15 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that we had questions availability to get all the questions asked. If you still have more questions, you could definitely email the CoC programs at allchicago.org. I'm gonna put that now in the chat so that everybody can do that. Also, if you have any questions, you can email me as well. I'm available to help. And you will be getting a lot of information and emails from us, from me and my team, the collab applicant team. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your week and take care.
Thank you.